Hey guys, political video for you tonight. So, the war of words between our incoming US President Donald Trump and the shadow government of the United States, which is euphemistically known as the intelligence services. So, what are we talking about when we talk about the intelligence services? We're talking about those rogue, unaccountable government organizations which are relics from the Cold War and should no longer even exist in 2017, yet they still do. We're talking about the CIA and we're talking about the NSA. Organizations which have decided that since there's no more Soviet Union to spy on, that their new enemy is the US citizen. And they seem to have decided that it's their jobs to propagandize the American people and to destroy our privacy rights. So, the war of words is heating up. What are we talking about here? Well, the director of the CIA, John Brennan, has recently made some veiled but pretty obvious threats against Donald Trump. You better watch what you say, Donald Trump. And we've got Senate Democrats and former Senate Democrats kind of cozying up to the CIA and being lackeys in this situation. So we've got former Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid saying that he wants to see the CIA giving false supports to Donald Trump. Of course, this wouldn't really matter since Donald Trump is refusing to, delightfully by the way, refusing to attend his CIA briefings. And I am kind of wondering where he plans on getting his actionable intelligence from so that he can lead effectively. I guess he's planning on some kind of parallel construction of an intelligence service in the U.S. Maybe he's planning on creating some new intelligence service or just cooperating with foreign intelligence services. I really have no idea. I love that he's doing this, but I don't know what his end game is. But for Harry Reid to suggest that the CIA should be giving the President of the United States false intelligence, yeah, it's downright treasonous. I mean, it's just reprehensible comments. And we've got current Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying that the CIA has 6 ways from Sunday to fuck over Donald Trump. Now, what does he really mean when he says this? Could he be talking about some, innocent way for the CIA to kind of get even with Trump, giving him faulty intelligence, so forth and so on? Well, this can be interpreted in different ways. But for those of us with more than 2 brain cells to rub together, we all know what he means. Okay, we all know what he's talking about. Because those in the know, those with a brain in their head, we know who killed John F. Kennedy. All right, we all know who did it. Now, I've talked about this on my channel before. People have asked me who killed Kennedy, and I said Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, for me to give that answer, it kind of sounds like, oh, Fakesagan, will you just buy the official story then? So you don't believe in any kind of conspiracy theory or anything like that. Well, it gets a little bit more complicated than that, because of course Lee Harvey Oswald was a CIA asset. And, anybody who thinks that that's a coincidence has got to be a total fool. I mean, how many people on planet Earth, how many people in the population at any given time are former CIA assets? So when one of them assassinates a sitting U.S. president, you would have to be an idiot to believe that's coincidence. So, just a little tangential aside about this. For people who don't know the history, so the CIA had a program during the Stalin era where they were sending young people over to the Soviet Union, kind of posing as idealistic students who were friendly to communist ideas. And of course, the real point was to get spies into the Soviet Union to spy on Stalin and disrupt politics over there. And Lee Harvey Oswald was one of these. Of course, we all remember when Oswald was captured, he famously said, "I'm a patsy." Um, Now, was he denying that he took the shot? Or was he merely saying that, oh, I kind of thought that I was going to be protected, that I was going to be immunized from any consequences for this, and instead they're throwing me under the bus? Well, we don't know because Jack Ruby shot him, and we didn't get too we didn't get too many interviews out of Lee Harvey Oswald. Um, Now, why would the CIA kill Kennedy? Well, Kennedy was very unfriendly towards the CIA, just like Donald Trump is. After the botched Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba, which was orchestrated by former CIA Director Allen Dulles, JFK wasn't included in these plans. He wasn't given a briefing about this. He found out about it after the fact, when Allen Dulles came to him and said, "Hey, we need air support. We're getting our ass kicked by Castro." And JFK basically said, "Fuck you. You didn't tell me about this. I didn't approve it. I wouldn't have signed off on it. You're not getting your damn airstrikes. And furthermore, you're fucking fired." Well, Allen Dulles got his job back. He got his job back after JFK was assassinated. And guess who got appointed as the head of the Warren Commission to investigate the assassination of John F. Kennedy? Of course, it was Allen Dulles. Now, I also think that Lyndon Johnson played a part in this. I essentially think that Dulles and Johnson put their heads together and orchestrated this assassination. What was Johnson's motivation? Well, of course he wanted the presidency, but furthermore, there was an ideological rift between Kennedy and his vice president. Kennedy wanted to get us out of Vietnam. Johnson wanted to increase U.S. involvement in Vietnam. JFK was kind of soft, if you want to use that term, soft on the Soviets. He wanted to take more of a diplomatic approach, whereas Johnson was more of a hard-bitten, cold warrior, and he didn't believe in appeasement, or what was thought of as appeasement at the time. So the point I'm making here is when the CIA starts making veiled threats against our president, we better take it seriously, because they have assassinated a sitting U.S. president before. And to the CIA, if you're listening, and I know you are, because I know that you guys, I know that the CIA itself is a flag word, and you guys want to know what Americans think about you. You're constantly spying on us. I had a friend in college who was a statistics major. He was looking into his career options, started going to a couple of CIA websites, looking into what you have to do to recruit. And then a few days later, he got a mysterious phone call from the CIA, and they said, "Hey, we know that you're interested in us. Would you like to talk?" So I know you're listening. And what I want to say to you guys is this: you're not going to get away with it again. You got away with it in the case of John F. Kennedy because there was total media control at the time. The entire country got their news from Walter Cronkite, and that was it. You're not going to pull off an assassination of a sitting U.S. president in the information age. We have the internet now. If you do this, we're going to know that it was you. And furthermore, we're going to retaliate against you. Heavily. It's going to be the death knell of the CIA if you do this. Government databases and servers are notoriously full of holes and easy to hack. We're going to find out the identity of your agents. We're going to find out where they live. And we're going to fuck you up. Hands off our president. So that's all I have to say to the CIA. But now this video is called Profiles in Treason, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about who these people are. Who is John Brennan? Who is Harry Reid? And who is Chuck Schumer? Now, in the case of John Brennan, this is especially relevant because, like I said, the CIA is an unaccountable and shadowy government organization. These guys don't really have much of a public record to speak of. They do if you're willing to dig into it. But they don't. Their careers don't get discussed in the mainstream media, of course. And in the cases of Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer, well, this is where we kind of veer into partisan politics, but I'm going to skirt around that. And the way that I'm going to do that, the information, and I'm going to start with those two guys first, by the way. We'll leave John Brennan for the last. But in the cases of Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer, if you want to know what my sources are for the information I'm about to give, it comes from ontheissues.org. Ontheissues.org is a fantastic website where you can get the voting records of any representative, and it's broken down into categories based on the issues. And I'm going to keep this as nonpartisan as I can by avoiding any votes that have to do with partisan issues, emotional issues, so stuff like abortion, Second Amendment rights. We're going to gloss over all that. And I'm just going to talk about their records concerning issues that should be important to every American, regardless of your political orientation. So we're talking about increased domestic spying, foreign policy, war, things that should concern us all. So Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer are both definitely parts of the security state. And what I mean by that is that, when we talk about the security state, we're not just talking about cops, we're not just talking about agents of the intelligence services, we're also talking about politicians that vote for things like wiretapping, increased domestic surveillance, and these guys are definitely part and parcel with that. They're also both enemies of increased government transparency. So in 2006, both of these guys, both Reid and Schumer, voted no on establishing the Senate Office of Public Integrity, which, had it ever come to fruition, would have been a bipartisan effort for lobbying disclosure. And the rationale at the time was, well, we already have a Senate Ethics Committee, but the Senate Ethics Committee does a piss-poor job on lobbying disclosure. Now, this measure got roundly defeated. I believe the score was 67-30. So, not surprisingly, these guys didn't like the idea of policing themselves and accountability. The point is, why do I bring this up? Secrecy has everything to do with the security state apparatus. Greater transparency is what they don't like. If it's what you do like, if you like the idea of increased transparency, finance reform, etc., then Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer are not your guys. Okay, so how about war? Well, in 1999, both of them, Reid and Schumer, voted to authorize airstrikes on Kosovo. So they both voted yes on bombing Kosovo. In 2002, they both voted for the invasion of Iraq. Okay, so how about spying? In 2006, both of them, Reid and Schumer, voted to reauthorize the Patriot Act. And in 2011, both of them, Reid and Schumer, voted yes on extending the Patriot Act's roving wiretaps provision. Charles Schumer, by the way, in 2001 made the remark that the Patriot Act is both balanced and reasonable. Now here's another interesting little bit of trivia, though it's neither here nor there. In 2006, Harry Reid voted no on building a fence along the Mexican border, but Chuck Schumer actually voted yes. So, for anybody who's under the impression that the Mexican border wall was like Trump's idea or something, it actually wasn't. This was first proposed under George W. Bush as the Secure Fence Act of 2006. And, essentially all that Trump is really proposing is completing the fence which is currently half built. It's half finished. But Charles Schumer has, spoken out against Trump as far as the wall goes. He said, I don't want a wall. So in 2006, he wanted a fence, but in 2017, he does not want a wall. Now, why do I bring any of this up? Why am I talking about these voting records? Quite simply, to dispel any notion that the fact that Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer talking shit about the CIA and Donald Trump is just entirely partisan politics. Yeah, partisan politics comes into play, but there's another division within the U.S. government besides left and right, Democrat and Republican. There's another division that's based more on, those representatives who still kind of believe in America and democracy, and those who are part of the security state apparatus and supportive of the shadow government, which is the intelligence services. And the point that I'm trying to illustrate here is that Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid are definitely part of that security state apparatus. They are they're against government transparency, they're for domestic spying, and they're treasonous scumbags. However, I'm probably not telling my audience anything that they don't already know yet, especially considering the fact that if I do say so myself, I have one of the most savvy audiences on YouTube. You guys know the deal on Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid. But let's move on to this scary looking motherfucker, John Brennan. Because this is where it really gets interesting. Who is John Brennan? Who is he? What's he about? He was a CIA analyst and the one who gave daily intelligence briefings to Bill Clinton. So he's been in the CIA for a long time. He was the chief of staff of George Tenet during the Bush years. So he was working for the CIA under Bush. Now, when Obama came into office, John Brennan was being considered as director of the CIA at that time, but he was withdrawn from consideration because during the Bush years, he was a proponent of extraordinary rendition. He also was somebody who supported enhanced interrogation, by the way. And these are both euphemisms, so let's just call a spade and talk about what we're really talking about. Enhanced interrogation, of course, is waterboarding, torture, which he later criticized Bush for very hypocritically, even though he was a supporter of it. As far as extraordinary rendition goes, extraordinary rendition is where the United States skirts around violating the Geneva Convention and really torturing the fuck out of detainees, quote unquote, which are actually prisoners. That's another way of skirting around the Geneva Convention, is we don't call them prisoners, we call them detainees, because prisoners have rights under the Geneva Convention and detainees do not. So extraordinary rendition is skirting around the Geneva Convention by sending detainees to other countries to have them tortured. And ironically, the country that we were using for this at the time was Syria. So he was withdrawn under the Obama administration for consideration as CIA director. And instead, he was given the post of Deputy National Security Advisor, and the reason for that is it didn't require any Senate confirmation. Now, that was during Obama's first term. In Obama's second term, they did sneak him in there. So that was when John Brennan was approved by the Senate Intelligence Committee in a vote of 12-3 to succeed David Petraeus as director of the CIA. Now, so we know that John Brennan was a proponent of enhanced interrogation and extraordinary rendition. What other feathers does this guy have in his cap? He is also the father of the infamous Obama drone strike program. This is the brain behind that, is this John Brennan. And he infamously remarked that not a single collateral damage death resulted from these drone strikes. But the way he was able to do this is by using a kind of fudged numbers counting method that considers that any military-aged male in a strike zone is a combatant. So therefore, no non-combatants got killed. There was no collateral damage because we're not counting them as collateral damage. If you're a military-aged male, then you're ISIS, you're Al-Qaeda, whatever the fuck, and you're fair game. So in light of this storied career, I think it's very fair to say John Brennan is our generation's Allen Dulles. And if there's anybody capable of doing what Dulles did, that is to say, treasonously assassinating a democratically elected United States president, it's probably this guy, John Brennan. So that concludes tonight's video, Profiles in Treason. I just pretty much wanted you guys to know who these three men are, why they seem to feel that they're powerful enough and insulated enough against any sort of consequences or backlash to be able to threaten open treason against a United States president. And now you know who they are, now you have seen the face of the enemy, and the only question is, are we going to let them get away with it? And I certainly hope that the answer is no. So, that's all the news that's fit to print. Keep it fake.